Hello everyone and welcome to SplitSecond. This week we receive another two guests from our capital, Lisbon, Afonso the Abzan Aficionado and Kakah the anti-file brewer. This time Leite brought his latest take on Birgi Storm, Afonso is on his own version of Hapatra, Baal put together a Tymna and Jeska farm build, and Kakah is on his own Thrasios Smasher combo. Leite won the dice roll and kept a turn 1 Birgi hand. No lands, but a Jeweled Lotus gets his engine on turn 1. He then has a Mox Diamond with no lands, but might find one in the top 2 with the help of Crimson Wisps. Staff of Domination is an outlet for infinite mana, while Dual Strike is great with all the cantrips in his deck. Magos of the Wheel helps on refilling in case of a whiff, and Experimental Frenzy is also good to storm from the top of the deck. Afonso mulliganed once and kept a lucky Gemstone Caverns, alongside an exotic Orchard. No ramp, but he does have Crop Rotation for an early Cradle, and Wishclaw Talisman to pick another combo piece. Young Wolf is one of the needed pieces to win, as well as Obelisk Spider. Pattern of Rebirth is another great tutor, so now he just needs to figure what fits out to the cavern and assemble the puzzle. Being third, Baal kept a slow but versatile hand, with his Scrubland and Luxury Suite for lands and a Sol Ring as his only ramp. Agent of Stormguard is a filter for Jeska's Will mostly, while Dranith will be late to the party due to the table layout. Enlightened Tutor can get him ramp or key enchantments, and Praetor's Grasp can go for Oracle or another needed card. Finally, Kakah also mulliganed once, and kept a slow but interactive hand. Tropical Island, City of Brass and Command Tower for lands with Deathrite, which does everything. In Portuguese we say that even gets us coffee. Keenan doesn't pair with the Shaman, but is key with Basalt and Thrasios lines. Hullbreacher needs no introduction nor Cyclonic Rift. Let's see how this unfolds. Before the game starts, Afonso shows off his luck with the Gemstone Caverns, exiling an Obelisk Spider. Leite then gets to his turn and also shows off some luck, with a Jeweled Lotus and Counting Storm already, just in case. He casts Birgi and then casts a Mox Diamond, triggering Birgi and discarding his top deck Dwarven Ruins. He casts a Dual Strike, getting 1 red from Birgi, with which he casts Crimson Wisps onto Birgi, getting 1 red and a copy from the strike. He draws one and then another, which luckily is a gamble, so maybe lucky? He casts it, getting a Mana Crypt and randomly discards Phyrexian Walker. He casts Mana Crypt, getting another red from Birgi, and then casts Experimental Frenzy. He plays a mountain from the top of his deck and follows it with a Walking Ballista for 0, getting another red. He found a Thrill of Possibility on the top, which he casts. Although, despite the efforts, he hit the brick wall, and is forced to move on to attacks. He swings it Birgi at Afonso, since he'll be the first to have blockers, and passes the turn. Afonso sadly didn't draw land, so he plays his exotic Orchard that only taps for red, and casts Deathrite Shaman before passing. Baal plays his Scrubland and casts a Sol Ring, shipping it to Kakah. He plays a Tropical Island and mimics Afonso with another 1CMC Walker, Deathrite Shaman. We are back at Leite and he loses the Crypt roll. He draws and the top card isn't much helpful, but instead of simply passing, he goes for it, casting Infernal Plunge, sacrificing Birgi. He nets 3 red, with which he recasts Birgi with the Crypt as well. Unfortunately, no lands nor castable spells from the top, so he passes. On his end step, Afonso casts Crop Rotation, sacrificing his Orchard for a Gaia's Cradle. On his turn, he starts by casting Young Wolf with Deathrite Shaman, and follows it with his Hapatra before passing to Baal. He starts with Luxury Suite and casts an Arcane Signet. He follows it with a Dranith Magistrate to deter Leite from any more shenanigans. He finishes with an Agent of Stormguard, shipping it back to Kakah. He plays a Command Tower and casts Keenan before passing. Leite loses the crit roll yet again and simply draws and passes. Afonso starts his turn with a Polluted Delta into an Overgrown Tomb. He probes his opponents to see if somehow he can connect with Hapatra, but figures everyone would rather see her dead than let her spawn a snake. So he makes it so no one wants to block her, by casting a Pattern of Rebirth onto her. He then attacks Kakah, who doesn't block, so Hapatra triggers and Afonso puts a counter onto Keenan, and creates a snake on a plane. He ships it to Baal. On his upkeep, he casts an Enlightened Tutor for his Smothering Tithe, and casts it after drawing it. He passes to Kakah, who draws and doesn't pay for the tithe. He plays a City of Brass and ponders for a bit, before casting Phantasmal Image, copying Hapatra, having this way a blocker for Hapatra and leaving Deathrite abilities open for a Rift in hand, so he passes. Leite has no way to go off, so he'd rather not crack the Frenzy and become the main target again. This way he might hit those land drops. He finally wins the crit roll, draws, paying for the tithe and passes, failing another land drop. Afonso draws and doesn't pay for the tithe, as he's tight on mana for his plans. He plays and cracks a Marshflats for his swamp. He then casts Wishclaw Talisman before attacking Kakah. Isham blocks with Keenan since he would die either way, On his second main phase, he activates Wishclaw, giving him 2 Leite. He gets a Viscera Seer, which he casts. One of the interesting stand-ups is that each Deathrite will be used only in response to the other. If one tries to use it to exile land from a graveyard, the other player can respond to it and exile it instead. This way, Kakah can get his second mana to fire Rift onto Pattern of Rebirth, so Viscera resolves. He sacrifices Hapatra to Viscera and tutors for a Protean Hulk. However, the main line of the deck that allowed him to win now resolves around Reanimating Hulk, but Kakah has Deathrite at the ready, so he has to go for an alternate line that just might get him there. He sacrifices Hulk to Viscera, tutoring Yawgmoth and Zealoport Cutthroat. He then sacrifices one snake to draw a card and put a -1/-1 counter on Dranith, hoping to get him down and go off next turn. He doesn't pay for the tithe and then casts an Arbor Elf, followed by a Metallic Mimic, naming snakes. He passes to Baal, who top decks a Peer into the Abyss. For a second he thinks that after Afonso's last turn he's free to go, but all he had cast were creature spells. Regardless, he goes for it and casts Peer into the Abyss, since he has a backup plan for next turn. Despite all shenanigans, Kakah doesn't actually have a counterspell, so it resolves, drawing him 44 cards and losing 20 life. Baal then casts a Mox Opal and follows it with a Lotus Petal. He plays a command tower and casts Grand Abolisher, announcing he's going for the win. With it on the stack, they figure that Afonso needs to dig for answers, so Kakah fires his only interaction, a Cyclonic Rift onto Smothering Tithe, so Baal doesn't net extra treasures from Yawgmoth. Tithe is bounced and Afonso uses Yawgmoth to draw 1, sacrificing the Viscera Seer, putting a counter onto Agent of Stromgald, and draining the table with Zealoport. He does it again, sacrificing Arbor Elf and putting another counter onto the Magistrate. Now it's the poor wolf's time to go, dealing with the Magistrate for once, coming back stronger and enabling Leite to interact as well. We all lose a bit track of all the sacrificial blood, and Afonso does it one more time, with Metallic Mimic to draw 1 extra card, but no counter was placed. He then lets Leite do his thing as he casts a Pyretic Ritual from the top of his library, triggering Birgi. He found a Seething Song that he casts. He has 7 mana, but the top card stopped him there, so he cracks the Frenzy to cast an Abrade onto the Sol Ring, as Baal had announced he was going for an extra turn. Afonso then uses Deathrite Shaman to generate 1 black mana to keep on with the Dark Sacrificial magics, hoping to pull the nuts with the Ritual into Necromancy. He puts a -1/-1 counter on the Wolf that cancels out with the +1/+1. Zealoport is slowly chipping down everyone's life, especially Baal's. He then does it again, targeting Kakah's Hapatra. Note that as Phantasmal Hapatra is targeted, the sacrifice trigger fires and it fizzles Yawgmoth's draw ability, but we only noticed this while editing, and not only didn't change the outcome of the game, but Afonso could target a different creature to get the same result. Young Wolf returns with a +1/+1 counter and it's sacrificed again, this time putting a counter on Deathrite. Not finding anything he needed, he sacrifices Zealoport as last resort and kills Deathrite, before Grand Abolisher finally resolves. Baal moves phases to empty his opponent's mana pools and then casts Lion's Eye Diamond, followed by a Jeweled Lotus, before finishing the turn with a Final Fortune. He discards 2 hand size and goes to his final turn. On his upkeep, he casts Vampiric Tutor for an Auriok Salvagers that he casts. This way, he is able to generate infinite mana with Lion's Eye Diamond, returning it with Auriok each time, and then infinitely cast Jeska, killing the table. GG. Since this was a short match, we decided to play another one. Luckily, this time Kakah won the die roll. He mulliganed once and kept a more controlling hand, with a Flooded Strand, Polluted Delta and a Lonely Gaia's Cradle. Sol Ring will put him ahead mana-wise, while Chain of Vapor and Dispel will help on controlling the board. Finally, freed from the reel, he yearns for a Bloom Tender of sorts. Leite mulliganed once and kept another turn 1 Birgi, with a single mountain and a mana crypt. Skullclamp can help on fueling his hand with Flamekin Harbinger that, for itself, can tutor for a combo piece, while Wheel of Misfortune and Valakut's Awakening can also help on refueling his hand. Mystic's Mastery is mostly an endgame card. Afonso mulliganed once and didn't want to go lower, with an Ancient Tomb, Urborg and Darkboard pathway for lands. Devoted Druid and Channeler Initiate are both great alongside Hapatra, while Noxious can serve as a Recursion or Disruption or even as a Vampiric Tutor if used alongside that Entomb. Lastly, Baal was the lucky one now, with the Gemstone Caverns and the Cavern of Souls. Mox Diamond could use the third land for that triple mana on turn 1. Pyroblast is good interaction, Diabolic Intent lacks a cheap creature to be cast, and Praetor's Grasp found its way back again. Lurrus unfortunately doesn't have much to do at the moment. Ready for this one? Before starting, Baal announces his luck with the Gemstone Caverns exiling Diabolic Intent. Kakah then gets to draw and play a Flooded Strand, cracking it for a tropical island and casts his Sol Ring before passing. Leite plays a mountain and casts a mana crypt, so we're all in for some storming turns. He casts Birgi and passes. Afonso plays Slitherboar Pathway and passes as well. Baal draws a non-land land, that's right. He plays an untapped Shatterskull the Hammer Pass, which he couldn't discard to Mox Diamond, and then is forced to discard his Cavern of Souls to it. He casts Tymna and passes. Kakah top decks a Mox Diamond, which he casts, pitching a Polluted Delta. He then plays a Gaia's Cradle and casts Rhystic Study before passing to Leite. He loses the crit roll and ponders deeply on going off or playing around Rhystic, which actually came right on time. He starts with a Flamekin Harbinger, not paying for Rhystic. It triggers and he tutors for a Grinning Ignis to the top, which paired with Birgi allows him to storm infinitely. He then casts Skullclamp, not paying for Rhystic and getting 1 extra red. He equips it onto Flamekin, which dies and draws him 2 cards. He plays a mountain and casts the Grinning Ignis, not paying for Rhystic, and with its last generated red, he equips Skullclamp onto Birgi and attacks Kakah for 4 before passing. Afonso plays an Ancient Tomb and casts Channeler Initiate, paying for Rhystic. He ships it to Baal, who goes directly at the red zone, swinging Tymna at Kakah. He gains 2 and pays 1 to draw a card. Not finding lands, he casts Luros, incapable of paying for the Rhystic, and passes. Kakah starts his turn with a Misty Rainforest, cracking it for an Underground Sea, matching his playmat. With Adnal's mana open, he ships it to Leite. His script is more forgiving this time around, and he plays a mountain. Rhystic Study is stopping him hard, so he goes for player removal, attacking Kakah once again before passing. Afonso plays an Urborg, fixing his mana, and Kakah's Cradle as well. He casts a Devoted Druid, paying for Rhystic, and then casts his Hapatra, not able to pay the 1. He passes to Baal, who once again jumps to the attack step, sending Luros at Kakah and Tymna at Leite. He gains 5 and Kakah responds to Tymna's trigger with an Hull Breacher. Baal responds with a Pyroblast, not paying for Rhystic, although in response Kakah fires a Dispel, so Hull Breacher resolves. Baal may pay no life to draw, but not only is stuck on lands, he has the perfect answer to it. He casts a Sudden Shock onto Hull Breacher, not able to pay for Rhystic. He then pays 2 for Tymna and draws 2 cards. He plays a Verdant Catacombs and cracks it for a Swamp, and casts a Lotus Petal, paying for Rhystic before passing. Kakah starts his turn by floating 2 with Sol Ring and casting Chain of Vapor on it. He then recasts Sol Ring and follows it with a Notion Thief. And suddenly the table is expecting to go hellbent. Leite responds with a Valakut's Awakening, paying for Rhystic. He puts 3 on bottom and draws 4. He then casts a Thrill of Possibility, discarding a Bloodstained Mire and can pay for Rhystic. He nets 1 red mana, but finds no red blast, so the Thief resolves. Kakah follows it with a Windfall, and Afonso responds with a Noxious Revival on Baal's Sudden Shock, so they know there's a secure way to remove the Thief in case Kakah whiffs and plans on wielding again next turn. He draws 32 cards but finds no fast mana, so he casts in Mox Ember and plays a City of Brass before sculpting his hand for his next turn. He discards a bunch of good cards, notably a Vampiric Tutor, Misstep, and some other counters, which hints at having at least 1, maybe 2 free counters. Leite wins the crit roll and keeps the beating at Kakah. Now, more than ever, those life points matter. He plays a mountain and on his end step, Afonso activates Devoted Druid twice, putting 2 -1/-1 counters on them, generating 2 snakes on a plane. He draws and plays a Bloodstained Mire and swings with everything at Kakah, who blocks Hapatra since the Thief would die regardless. Afonso then cracks the Mire for a Swamp and recasts Hapatra, paying for Rhystic. He passes to Baal, who, after some discussion, sends Jeska to the chopping block. He pays for Rhystic, but Kakah responds with a Force of Will, as expected, pitching his Swan Song. Baal then attacks Kakah for 5, gaining 5 and paying 1 to draw 1 more. He top decks a Dockside, but is 1 mana short from being able to recast Jeska and Sudden Shock. This way, he simply recasts Lotus Petal from his graveyard, with Luros not paying for the study and passes. Kakah starts his turn with a Dockside Extortionist. Baal ponders for a bit, but feels 1 extra artifact won't matter much, so he keeps his Petal. He gets 4 treasures and casts a Narset Parter of Veils. He down-ticks her and actually finds a Tainted Pact, so he changes plans. He casts a Finale of Devastation for 2, getting Thassa's Oracle onto the field, triggering, and he responds to the trigger with the Tainted Pact, exiling his deck and winning the game. GG. Thank you for joining us for today's match, everyone. Seems like drawing 30 and 40 cards is enough to win games. Who would have thought, right? We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, Stefan, TJ Rapp, Mike Purr, Arjimo, Heated Chill, Drunken Housecat, V, RJ, and Brendan Glazebrook, our stack breakers. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing, or by becoming a patron yourself. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Join us again next week for a new set of Commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then!